All right, so welcome everyone to today's Zoom call on staffing and current site operations. We've got Erin Tyerman, Director of Business and Clinical Development at Seagull Trials, Zach Mitchell, Director of Business Operations at iResearch Atlanta, and Woody Woodeman, who I know all of you know, who's co-founder and president and CEO of Synergy San Diego. This conversation sort of came out of our last Zoom call where we were talking about the Delta variant's impact on site operations, and the biggest impact seemed to be on the staffing issues. So we went with a call specifically on staffing. So with that, I'm going to toss it to Erin, who is going to give us our overview intro of the situation.
Thanks, Erica. Hi, everybody. So today we are discussing some staffing issues that we've seen, within our industry. But I think in general, as we can all kind of watch the news and see, there's a staffing issue across multiple industries at this point. And there's a little catchphrase being used in some articles called turnover tsunami. And everyone's talking about pandemic burnout. What's causing people to want to leave? Why is retention of staff becoming challenging, even finding new staff? Discussions around current employees feeling undervalued, burned out. There's been with some of changes in different industries, there's a greater workload on current employees. There's been people going remote, and when that happens, a lot of times people can start to feel disconnected from their company culture. And so although it is definitely affecting our industry, I feel it. I'm pretty sure everybody on this call kind of feels it. I think it is a global issue at this point. I know there's been some discussions also just in some of these articles about how do you, as an employer, prevent this kind of burnout, or what do you do? And I think, Zach and Woody are going to discuss that a little bit more, but I think some of the things that will kind of come of that is, one, I think we have to start to accept that this new way of work looks very different than maybe what everything was looking like about a year ago or a year and a half ago. Understanding that as management, we should be more transparent with our employees, like make sure we're explaining what our company culture is, find out what your staff needs, and let Zach talk on that. But in terms of our industry, pharma, CROs, sites, what have I seen personally, and I mean, feel free to jump in and open a discussion. Big issues with CRAs. It appears that there's not enough of them from what we've seen. We've had a lot of CRA turnover. We've had a lot of just studies that have gone a very long period of time without having monitoring visits because there aren't monitors to monitor. We've had instances where we have had to go back now to remote monitoring. And in a lot of our studies, we aren't using something like eSource. So that then takes a very large burden on our site staff, because that entails now scanning, redacting, uploading documents, spending time on phone calls with monitors, where before, they'd be in their monitoring room. You can run down the hall, check on them, and then, have to have a break. And so with issues already at the site in terms of available staff to even do the day-to-day work, when they now have to spend 3 hours on a telephone call with a monitor or scanning documents, it's now limiting staff operations even more. Another big area that my department, I work in startup, and I see a big problem with startup across the board with sponsors and CROs. We do internally, I do a lot of like financial projections and things like that as to what your year is going to look like and when studies are slated to start. But right now we're finding that the CROs don't have enough people in their startup teams to get studies started. I have 3 studies right now that are currently 3 months delayed. And they're big studies. They're studies that should be, up and going. And we had already started building wait lists and things like that. And so not only now are you affecting like your site revenue, you're affecting the site's business, you're also affecting the volunteers because they're expecting certain things to start at certain times. And now we're delayed because of these staffing issues. And then internally at the site level, I've seen we've lost some staff. There's been some poaching. There's been a shortage of qualified staff to then hire for the positions that we need. I could probably use about 5 more research coordinators right now. And we're having a really hard time finding them. Additionally, raters, because a lot of the vendors are going remote, and we've got a lot of sponsors that are doing remote ratings, and so finding those on-site raters is becoming very challenging as well. Let's see, what else have I dealt with? So then at the site level, what has now come up due to kind of these multiple staffing issues is we've had some protocol deviations, quite a few. And I recently had almost got into it with a monitor on site who ran me down in a hallway asking me where all of my data entry staff were because she needed to speak to them immediately. And I was like, whoa, hi, nice to meet you. Let's discuss this a little bit more, like what's happening. And so we had a situation at one of our sites where we had 3 staff members out with COVID at the same time, 2 data entry and the lead coordinator. Sorry, the data didn't get entered. This individual like threw a fit in the middle of our site, called like 4 different people within her organization to make this a giant big ordeal without maybe even taking into account like, hey, are there extenuating circumstances? Does this happen every time she's here? Like it just the immediate action was to just escalate without even asking like, hey, what happened? Because I'm pretty sure maybe the sponsor would have been a little bit lenient if they had heard like the entire staff was out with COVID, you would think. And so that's been challenging, and it's kind of defeating to the staff members that have to deal with that type of behavior on site, because they're like, we're doing everything we possibly can. They're working nonstop. We're trying to get patients in. We've had to like turn down studies because we can't take on anymore. And so yeah, those are
in that scenario, Erin, I just want to I know you had talked about that situation before, and in that scenario, you sort of refocused your staff to get down the stuff that the patients that were coming in, like you prioritized, and the data entry was not the highest priority given the amount of staff.
Right.
So you did
like getting the visits
you
done.
were doing the right thing. I mean, it's the only thing you could have done, right? Yeah. So I just didn't want to say that I didn't want it to sound like you were just, hey, we don't have the staff to do it. It's not going to happen.
No. We had to refocus the few staff we had left to make sure that the visits were done, the blood was drawn, the scales were done, and the data entry became like the least concerning issue at the moment. And I'm sorry, it's kind of just how the hierarchy of stuff falls when it comes down to, the day-to-day site activities. So yeah, it's been a bit challenging, and I think maybe we can have an open discussion here after everyone talks about what needs to happen. Do we have to start like conversations from the very beginning with sponsors and CROs and figure out what that compromise looks like? Like how can you be accommodating to understand kind of what's going on, boots on the ground? Because at the same time, like even just the level of care that we now have to provide our volunteers is different. It's, there was always that, level of care that we had, but now you have to make sure that everyone feels safe even walking into your facility. There's that extra bit of effort we have to put in to make sure that everybody is comfortable, everybody wants to come into their visits, everybody's safe, doing okay, like nobody's sick. There's extra steps. So I think there's always that level of divide between like the sites and the sponsors and the CROs, but maybe we can figure out a way how we can all kind of come together to make everybody understand everybody's little pain points and work together to make this a little more harmonious.
Great, thanks, Erin. Yeah, if you want to pass to Zach now.
I was trying to talk and then I realized that I was on mute, but yeah, I was basically saying yes, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Erin. So, kind of to piggyback off of what Erin said, there are a lot of things that are going on. And I think the stress level right now for everybody is probably through the roof. So it's, everything rolls downhill. The C-suite executives at the sponsors, down to the CRAs, down to the CROs, and then to the sites, and then from management down to the coordinators. It's just, so I think one thing that everybody, as a site perspective, we've got to increase our employee morale. And what are some things that we can do to try to help our staff members? And I think I went around yesterday and I just asked some of the staff here. I researched, what are some things that either we do or that you would like to see that could just kind of help, with morale. And some of them are super easy. Acknowledge staff birthdays, life milestones, right? Don't let a birthday go by and you guys don't sign an e-card or a card, or bring in a cake and sing happy birthday. Take the time to really embrace your staff, because the staff, if you're leadership, the staff is your customer, right? Like you are trying to lead a team of professionals that can do this work, this highly skilled work. It's hard to train. And so once you have somebody, we really need to try to retain them. The kudos in staff meetings, that was another big one that people really like, right? Those love languages, there's time, words of affirmation, acts of service. So if we go back to all of that, it translates into business as well. So the other thing is to analyze workload and make sure that it's even. And kind of how Erin was saying is we have to adjust as needed. And if a coordinator is overwhelmed and people are out, you have to analyze, you have to make executive decisions, and you have to move forward with your plan. When you do that, the biggest thing is to communicate it, right? Communicate it to the entire staff. I think our biggest thing is just, we try to over communicate now about everything, because the more knowledge everybody has, it seems the less people feel, in the dark. They feel like they have an idea of what's going on. They can grip with their week. And it also then takes the pressure off the CRA. Hey, I want to let you know X, Y, and Z, that key staff member is out. We have backups, helping, but give us a little bit of a break, because we know what we're doing, but we have to take care of our staff, number one. And that goes also, like, to just remind your leaders that the staff is their customer, right? Your managers, your directors, the reactive management style, that, pointing fingers, and it just doesn't work anymore. And it never has. But right now, that was a big thing, is just to make sure that we don't have reactive leaders. Listen to our staff, really understand their concerns, and listen to their ideas. So really just take the time to understand what they're saying, because if you don't have approachable leaders in place and your staff is feeling overwhelmed, they're going to look for a new job. If they feel like they're not being heard, they're going to look for a new job. If they can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, they're going to look for a new job. So communicate to your staff, to your team, about what you're doing. Like, okay, Sabrina is our data coordinator. Okay, Sabrina, I know that you are drowning right now. So I want to let you know, this is what we're doing. We're pulling Kelsey from the lab to come help you. She's been in, data entry before, and we're looking to fill a position. Do you know anybody that you'd like for us to bring in, right? Team approach, again, no siloing. Stop the siloing, where this person's a coordinator, this person's in study startup, this person is a manager, and can't. We are a team, and that's the biggest thing right now that our staff is really, really feeling, is the team effort, because when they also feel like you really have their back, when you talk to a CRA or you talk to a sponsor and you let them know what's going on, they feel a little bit like a sense of relief that like you're their protector in a way, and that stress level that you're kind of taking that away from them, taking it off of them, and kind of saying, this is where we are. And then the other like thing is, this was kind of interesting, is to look around your office, right? So as sites, traditional sites, yes, we're getting into the decentralized model. Yes, there's a lot of, that's a big push, but there are still a ton of trials that have the traditional model. I think there always will be. And one thing is to look around the office and make sure that you want to be in the office. Like, do you want to sit at their desks? Does the office need a refresh? Is it gross? Does it need to be clean? Like, do we need to replace some carpet? And really just think about like, or, hey, I might want to work from home because I don't want to go to that dirty place anymore. Brighten it up, clean it, make it feel welcoming. And another example was they really, engage your employees and your staff and try to make it fun, right? Staff outings, do a happy hour, bring in a coffee barista on a Friday and just make it a perk. And also is like invite them and try to invest in your staff to go to meetings, the CNS Summit, the SCRS, all of the different meetings that so many of us love to attend. Try to get some of that engagement from your key, your staff members, and let them see a part of the industry that maybe they haven't seen yet. And you will instantly get, like hook, line, and they're in it, right? Some of the other things, incentives, programs, offer additional perks when you can, right? Bring in lunch, offer counseling or therapy if you can for your staff. It's stressful. We work in CNS. We hear stories all day long that are terrible, and we don't like to go home with them. So our staff doesn't either, right? It's just as hard as them as it is on the raters and the doctors. And really understand that, yes, some of these things are outside the box, but it's just like, can you bring in one of those like table massage chair people and, do that once a month, or a chiropractor? The other thing that we've done, and I think is a starting point, is to really look at our compensation structures. And are there some things that need to be, like, do some policies need to be revisited? Bonuses sometimes used to be attached to like a performance metric. Well, that doesn't really work anymore, because there are, they used to be attached to visit numbers, or, patients randomized, or things like that. Timeliness of EDC entry. A lot of those things now are out of our hands, right? We have these remote raters, that we have, the adjudication processes. We have all of these things that it's kind of out of the coordinator's control, and that model doesn't really work anymore. So what we've, what we've done is really taken a step back, looked at that, and just said, what, we do it, end of the year bonus. And it's not tied to performance. Now, obviously, yes, there are still some things that you think about, but it's like those old ideas are just not taken into consideration anymore. And I think when staff kind of gets the feeling that they're going to be valued, and like they're just doing the best that they can, and we're all talking, it just has made it so much easier. Also, like, offer assistance to the staff. So life happens, and they are doing the best they can, right? The patient's coming late. The sponsor wants the patient to randomize. They're begging you for patients. The coordinator's tired, the rater's tired, the doctor's ready to go home. The patient's running an hour late. They're going to get there at 5 o'clock. And all right, what can you do to help? Like, do you have daycare? Do you have an after school? Can we pay for it? Can we cover it? Can you come in late the next day or take a day off? Like, just really listen to them, and make sure that you're doing everything that you can to kind of help them. And with comp structure, right now what we're trying to look at, what I'm trying to track is out, and the decentralized companies, what they're paying their coordinators has been way higher than what we can pay our coordinators. So as team members and leadership, when you're, we're going to have to push this cost back on somewhere. So when you're asked for a rationale for your coordinator fee or for the increase in your overhead, I think one thing, I think as a STARR Coalition, Aaron, Erica, that might be something that we can work together to provide these sites is here is a very easy standardized thing that it's higher now. And if you guys can pay the decentralized trial companies the money to afford these coordinators, we've messed up somewhere. And I think that's something that we have really started pushing back on. And, right now, less than $200, I think a lot of time for a coordinator per visit, it's a joke. It's an absolute, so that's something we're really pushing. Another thing, company holidays, can you increase it across the board? Is there any way that you can do 1 day a month mental health day? It just really makes the staff say like they have 1 day a month that they're going to be off and they can do the stuff that they need to do since they are working late and coming in early and kind of helping the ecosystem. Aaron mentioned culture. Make sure that you understand what your culture is. And I think of it as a garden, right? It grows, it gets bugs. You have to go out there and you have to prune it. And then you either have to till up some more land and keep growing or, just like to really understand what your culture is and know that it's going to change. And how can you make sure that you're always revisiting what your company culture actually is? Implement some helpful technologies. E-source, e-signatures, an electronic sign-in for patients that alerts the coordinators when they come in. We use a system called Envoy, and it just has been great. And that's really, just communicate. Now, some things, and the other thing is to do is remember that we all are people. And when you as leaders or, executive team members, the docs, own up to the mistakes, right? We made a decision and it wasn't great and we hear you and how can we fix it? Yes, we were a little reactive. I'm sorry. And you're appreciated. And just really to remember that, because the minute that I feel like, right now it's like everybody is on that. Everybody's LinkedIn is blowing up with recruiters like, hey, I have this opportunity, I have this opportunity, I have this opportunity. And you have that one bad day, someone gets, ticked off and they get home. It's really quick to lose someone if you don't immediately say, own up to, what, I'm really sorry about that. Just to really remember to do that and that everybody, we're all people and we're all doing the best we can. Some things to stop doing. The biggest one right now that I think is stop ignoring the elephants in the room at your site, right? Address the shortage of the staff, address the burnout that everybody is feeling, address the backup in the data and, just address it, talk about it and get people talking and try to get into solution mode and always try to stay there with how can we move forward? How can we address these things? And how can we make it where you aren't feeling a burnout? Talk about, protocol deviations, the quality issues, just talk about it and just stop kind of trying. I think a lot of times, you don't want to, some people like HR doesn't want you to say, oh, there's a shortage. Well, there is. And, HR, I feel like now that entire HR mindset has shifted. And then stop setting unrealistic goals for the coordinators. Stop going into your feasibilities and your PSVs and saying you can enroll so many patients and then expecting the coordinator and the recruitment staff to do it if it's not realistic when you know that you're behind in your other studies and kind of set that expectation. Now in PSVs, I'm pretty much saying like, look, we're busy. We might be 2 months out to being able to have a PSV. If you're still interested, let's talk in 2 months. And the other thing is stop ignoring the phrase work-life balance. I know, I feel like a lot of eye rolls there. And I know for a lot of time, people, millennials or Gen X, that work-life balance, you kind of get that eye roll, but everybody wants life and everybody has life. And, it's easy a lot of times to forget that you asking someone to work an hour or an hour 30 minutes later is a big deal, but it is. People have kids, they have parents, they have life, and try to always go back to that. And how can we help that work-life balance? Like, what can you do to make your staff have it? And that's kind of what I have. And Now I'm going to pass it on to Woody, unless anybody has any comments about that.
It was, Zach, that was terrific. And I wanted to add, if you don't mind, a couple of things. One is transparency, and transparency is a two-way mirror. I think it's important to talk to the staff and individually, and little things you can do here and there. But I also think at these times, after last year and financially and everything else that took place, I think it's important to be transparent about the status of your company and where it is, and what we can do and what we can't do, and those kind of things. And I think it's important, and I think the staff really appreciate that. Then it makes it easier to understand certain aspects of what you're doing now that you weren't doing 2 years ago. And I think it really works both ways. And the idea of the hours, I think, is really important too. When you hear about, like, Tom Brady's the best quarter, but he's the guy who's there an hour before anybody else, and he's the guy who leaves an hour later. And I think the leadership at a site has to set that same example. And I wound up doing a 16 patient with one of our assistant coordinators, kind of a derm kind of study we were doing, where they were there for 6 hours. So I actually wound up coordinating it with the assistant coordinator, because I didn't want the coordinators to be taken away from what they're normally doing. And I think examples like that, even though I got sick for 3 days afterwards because I was so damn tired and I'm old, I think it really sets a tone for people to understand that we're all in this together. We may ask you to do something, and you can ask me to do something, and it's not our normal, because this just isn't normal times. And the other word that I was thinking about with transparency was the customer point you brought up, and it made me remember something my father told me years ago, and I thought he was crazy till he explained it. And we've always learned the customer is always right, and my father said, absolutely false. The customer isn't always right, but they're always the customer. So if somebody walks in and starts screaming, fuck you, what's going on? You just say, love to help you. First thing is, don't talk to us that way. If you're going to have to talk to us that way, there's the door. You can leave if you want to try to come in again, but we're here to help you. Love to help you. You have to treat us fairly. We'll treat you fairly. And I think it's important, whether it's CRAs, whether it's patients, whether it's anybody, it's important for the staff to know they're safe, you care, and you're going to take care of them. And in turn, they're going to take care of you and us. And I just wanted to add those to all the great ideas that you said. I really appreciated that. What I'm going to focus on is somewhat more external. And it was funny because I was at my 55th college reunion this last week, and part of it was we were in Carmel, and I was thinking of Carol when I walked into this place, the Hog's Breath restaurant that Clint Eastwood built in Carmel. The hogs are, but on the wall in front of me at the table was the good, bad, and ugly poster. And when I was looking at this external thing, I was thinking of the good, the bad, and the ugly as far as it comes to external connections. And the good has been, we've had several biotech, small pharmas predominantly have just said, we will pay for you to hire additional staff to work on our study, to do this, something that's, relatively new, and they're very serious about it. And I think it's terrific. And so I wanted to point out, one of it was Romada, and I don't want to get into like just them, but other people are doing the same thing. And it's something we're now asking people to do, because let's be real, right now, between staffing and recruitment, other than that, everything else is, not that important in my mind, at least. And so I wanted to point out that some companies like that, and also CROs like Syneos, I want to point out, Cogress and Premier are also, I think, reaching out a lot to do things to really help us. And I've also decided it's a great time not to be shy about any of these things. There are no bad requests. And I think we'll be surprised by how many positive responses. You say, listen, we'd love to do this and we want to do this, but we really need help doing this. We need financial help. The help can be in many, many ways, but I think it's essential that we not be shy about it, because on this screen, we have people that are at large sites, we have people at medium sites, we have people at small sites, and they're all different in kind of what you can do and how you can do it. And that transparency issue comes into, that the kind of the good thing again, which is at the site level, which I think for sites that never closed during the pandemic, that first year, I think that gave them a tremendous advantage because they didn't lose as many staff. I know sites, some that went more remote wind up losing. And I think it's important to remind us all that we survived that year together. We're going to survive from now on together, but it's a tough time. I mean, I've talked to probably 40 sites in the last month on the issue of no-shows. And no-shows that at sites may have been 20% are now, I'm seeing averages of more like 40, 50% no-shows because the patients are still concerned. It's a medical place, so they're gonna walk in and people are gonna be coughing them, and the numbers are staggering. So looking at ways we can help each other as sites with ideas, I think can help dramatically. The bad has been, I think the larger the pharma, the less they've really spent time understanding what's going on at the site level. They're in, it's silly, but they're in giant glass buildings and, it's like, I love the term that they're watching old war movies where the Marines are on the beachhead and just being killed and everything else. And the admiral is 25 miles offshore in a pair of binoculars going, well, it looks pretty good from here. You can't understand what we're going through unless you come and see us, unless you talk to us, unless you understand, because most of them just don't. And the other part of the good, the bad is getting those organizations to do more and to help us in many ways more. The ugly gets into the poaching issue. And I won't mention the CRO, but we had a CRO come in and monitor with two of our young, very good coordinators, and during a 3 to 4 week period, recruited them while on site and wound up offering them a lot of money. And I don't blame the coordinator. They were offered probably twice what they were making, and both left. But this is kind of, in my mind, an unspoken rule. If one of my staff sees an ad and wants fabulous, but you don't come in and you don't recruit people, and this is the ugly to me, and you can't do that. I understand their shortages. We all have the same problem, and it tends to go downhill because the money uphill is usually better and so forth. But also some of those times they get into that. We've had this happen before years ago, where they went and they did those things, and then 6 months later they were back because they understood they rather work with people that need them, just not work with people that want them to do things they may not even want to do. So I think that poaching issue is an important issue. As far as working with other sites, I think there's some really interesting ideas. One of them is that we're always competitive with people in our area, whatever, but getting a hold of other sites and say on the recruitment side, what are the centralized groups you may be doing? What are the social media groups you may be working with? And ones that were particularly successful with specific diagnoses. They're really great at schizophrenia, but they stink at depression. They're really good with Alzheimer's, but I think us helping each other find those and say, here's ones that we work with that were really, really helpful, because it's the old joke about it used to be everybody was selling ceiling fans. Now they're all selling solar, electrical systems, and now they're all experts in patient recruitment. And there's hundreds of them out there, but most of them have little to no experience. And they go, yeah, we're a worldwide company. How long have you been in business? 3 weeks. Okay, I'm sure that works out really well. But I think we can really help each other with that. The last thing is really fascinating to me. I got a call from a friend at a site, and they, like a lot of us, had lost coordinators, and they were trying to find experienced coordinators, which is almost impossible. So they were hiring bright young people, but then they said, okay, now we have to train them. And then they're thinking, we don't even have enough people to do the patients we have. So they called me, and I called a couple of people I knew that were retired, semi-retired people who were monitors, had been coordinators early on, and they're creating a treatment program, training program that sites could use. And with this particular site, that can be remote, it can be in person, it can be a hybrid of both, where instead of taking their staff time away from what they're doing, they can have this training program for a week or two, a couple of days in person, more remote, and ongoing, to really do a basic coordinator training, which I think is a great idea. And I think most people I know could use something like that. So once we kind of get through this next month and so on this, if anybody's interested in that, let me know. But there's so many people out there that are, like in coordinators and sites, we've lost so many people. Same thing with the monitors and everything else. A lot of retired, a lot of gone into some other things, but they're fascinated by that ability to create treatment programs. I think we all need treatment right now, with training programs to really learn the basic essentials of how to be a coordinator. Those are, I think, the main things that I was thinking about. There was something else, but I think those are the biggest things. I think, do not be shy about asking for help from pharmas, from biotechs, from your CROs, whoever it may be, because everybody knows that we're all in a terrible time, a terrible situation. And I appreciated what Aaron and Zach both said, because I think, we're very fortunate. Half of our employees have been with us for more than 12 years. Some have been with 16 years. So this is family in so many ways. And I think if you're not as fortunate as that, but you have people, and I think a lot of the things Zach was saying, really talk about how you create a family, how you treat a family, how a family works. Because it may be corny, but the reality is, if you're at a site, you're running a site, you're working a site, you're doing whatever there, it's really a family issue. It's really no different. And I think you have to do it in that way. And when things are good, you do what you can and help and do this. When times are bad, you do the same thing. You just be honest about it. We have a Christmas dinner every year. I don't know if we're going to be able to afford to have a Christmas dinner every year, but we'll go to a taco place and have a dinner. We'll do whatever we do. We do the last Thursday of every month is Taco Thursday. And I bring in tacos from the local place and do this and that. With the birthday things, the cards, I do the card. Any of those little things just are incredibly, or just the walk over and I talk to every staff individually, probably within every week or 2 weeks. Just, how's it doing? I heard your daughter just got on a volleyball. It doesn't make it's just letting them know you're thinking about them, you care about them, and they're more than just somebody that happens to work there. They're a member of your second family in my mind. And that's it. Thank you.
I agree with that, Woody. Like, when you think about it, you spend more time with the people that you work with than you do with your own families. I mean, realistically, and it's been interesting here. We've grown quite a bit over the last 2 years, and there's a lot of new people at Siegel, where before, I've been at Siegel for 12 years, and there's a lot of staff who've been here 10 plus years. And so it's a different, thing we're kind of navigating. But what we've recently started doing is, like, once a month, something fun on a Friday. So we did, like, painting with a twist last month, and we sent all the different sites like little sparkling grape juice, and I got on the teams and taught everyone how to paint a picture. And, like, next Friday, we're doing a pumpkin carving contest to kind of get away from that day-to-day stress and just, like, have an afternoon full of food, fun, like, just entertainment with your sites. And you're right, we do Thanksgiving. We've done Thanksgiving. We've done holiday, like, meals. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that either. We're going to try, or, like you said, it's going to look a little bit different, but it's important. So,
and to add one thing, because I have brought donuts from Miss Donuts down the street every Tuesday morning forever. And the staff still thank me when I bring them in. But I think it's important to do regular things like that. But I think it's just as important, or maybe more important, to spontaneously once a month to do something that's not expected. It's not regular. It's not going to. So I think having the planned ones regularly, but also those spontaneous ones, I think the look on people's faces is great. They're just, it's out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I came in late to the discussion, but it's been very interesting just in the short amount of time that I've been listening in. I want to share something that occurred just a few minutes ago with the sponsor. Have 2 staff members that are unblinded on a particular study we're doing with schizophrenia. And we have a sponsor representative in today, plus the monitor. And what my coordinators were told was that they needed to physically count out the pills to do drug accountability in front of the sponsor and the CRO. Well, we've already completed our drug accountability. All our logs are up to date, but they want to take 2 individuals out of my day to be able to perform a validation task, which really is on the CRO. So the logs are there, all of the pills are there, the pill counters are there. I said, supply them with gloves. So they refused. So I took them back into an office. I said, look, here's the reality. I can have my coordinators work on substantive issues, right? Queries to resolve things rather than to sit there and count in front of you pills that should be counted by you. You need to validate that we have the correct count. We have a count, you do a count, we'll match up and see where any discrepancies lie. I had to get pretty tough with them, and eventually they agreed, because you are absolutely correct. They have no idea what's going on with these labor shortages and how badly they affect. You know, for sponsors to come out and just on the fly want to have you endorse something that is out of the contract, that is out of the ordinary. You know, supporting your staff also means going to bat for them and being there when the sponsors are just a little overbearing, you know. And I think that goes a long way towards them seeing, hey, you know what, we have backup at the site level, because they are getting a lot dumped onto them as the CROs are becoming, they're having the same staffing shortages. What they're trying to do is just trying to trickle down duties to the site. As it is already, I've been in this game for close to 30 years. I started with NCR paper, and I hate emails because emails make everything, that wasn't ordinarily a priority, now is my second request. Here's my third request, with the idea that, something catastrophic is going to happen if I don't answer the query here within the next day. Is just ridiculous, or you have a data crunch that you didn't tell us about, which now becomes an emergency for us, So I think, being engaged and just backing up your staff during this crunch time is really important. All the things that you mentioned, we're trying to do Thursdays, take the staff out for lunch or after hours, because they're giving it their all, but they're being asked to take on responsibilities now from the sponsors and CROs that we never had to do before, and although we want to please our client, we want to keep the people that we have without overburdening them, and they're overburdened as it is. And so thank you for giving me a little time. Great discussion, by the way.
Joe, it's funny when you brought that up about the emails, it made me think of, in the old days when you watch Walter Cronkite, he read the news. Now, the only time we actually see news is when CNN or Fox or whoever says breaking news. If a guy falls down in Toledo, it's breaking news.
Right.
But the rest of the show is opinions. There's no
Correct.
news, it's opinions. This is the email. Every time you get an email, it's like you're supposed to drop everything, grab all the staff together to see what one of this 300 emails you get a day is asking you to do. And again, this is the customers, and already I think you did a great job, because they're the customer. Let me tell you the reality. You took them away. Their ego wasn't necessarily as much on the line because it was just the two of you, and you talked about it. And I think that was brilliant.
Thank you.
I agree. And there's also like a piece, I guess we didn't even touch on, but I even have like the PI shortage and just like their burnout. And even yesterday, I have one of the least confrontational PIs like ever. He's like the nicest man you'll ever meet. And yesterday I thought he was going to go berserk on a monitor because she was insisting that he should be the only person writing notes in a source. And he, to the point where he went into the office because she was yelling at our coordinator, he went in, grabbed the delegation log, threw it on the desk and goes, what is the point of this log where it says that this person right here is delegated to do this? If you're expecting me to write every single note or see every single patient at every single visit. And it's not realistic. Like life happens, there's other things that people do, and it's just,
I'm
when your
glad you
doctors
brought up,
start
I'm
to-
glad you brought up the PIs, because with everything going on, and we're so blessed with Dr. Semenuk and other sub-Is we have and so forth, that they're just do such an amazing job, because just the recertification stuff, the certification stuff. I was telling some of the people very early on the call, we have a 16-year veteran in our office, PhD rater, who's told she has to do a 3-hour call with Verify on a cognitive scale training. And it's like, she's done this thing thousands of times, but I've never heard of a 3-hour phone call required on a recertification for a study. It's just, we have to just be able to say, nope,
No.
can't do it. Because it's insane, some of the requests. And I think part of the issue you're both bringing up is a lot of these monitors they're bringing in have never done this stuff before. And their training was probably 3 hours on a plane ride there. There's so many people that have no clue about what they're doing.
So 2 people from our recruitment team were poached by a CRO, and they were maybe had worked for us for a year and a half, and now they are senior clinical research CRAs.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people that are coming on sites and telling us what to do. And that's the other thing of like, really like, no, you're not correct. And, and that it is so frustrating. It is so frustrating.
I'd like to chime in. Don Garcia, I'm a PI in Austin. I've been doing this for 30 years. And I want to thank Zach and Aaron and Woody for your words, which are just, I mean, it feels like you've worked at my site here for the last 5 years. And we're definitely in the last year and a half, seeing things that just I've never seen before. I have so many comments to make, but I want to sort of limit my comments and not take up all the time. I found that with issues with sponsors, there's just an incredible shortage on their end. And I try reminding my site staff that they're having, we're here in a happy family, or trying to be a happy family. They're working for larger organizations that are putting incredible pressure on them to do things that they're not really trained to do. I had a monitor come all the way, drove all the way from Dallas the other day for a study, and got here. Her supervisors were telling her she needed to come out. She was saying, well, they haven't been approved by the IRB yet. And her supervisors were saying, it'll be fine, just go there. And then she got here and the approval didn't come through. And she was like, now what? Okay, I guess I have to drive back home. And I try reminding my staff, everybody here is under incredible pressure. It's just horrible to have to be a CRA dealing with that. And we have to have some compassion. And then as PIs and veterans, we have to sort of provide a role model. We have to be role models to these monitors and just sort of educate them. Like, I've never seen this in 30 years. I've never seen anybody ask me for this information. I know y'all are under a lot of pressure to get this done, but here's the reality. We're all on the same team. We're just not going to be able to take 2 people off. We have visits that we're trying to do here, short staff. There's no way I can take 2 people to be popping pills out and counting them like in Joe's situation. And trying to have a non-adversarial relationship with them, I think really can be helpful if they hear from us as mental health professionals that we really know what's going on behind the curtains and that they're really getting a lot of pressure on their end. Often I find that they're a bit more compassionate with us. I also try to take those moments to sort of almost sleazily point out to my staff, like, this is what's on the other side. If you go over to CRO, it's going to be great. Back in the day, it's like, oh, you travel everywhere, that you get to stay in hotels and rack up your frequent flyer miles, but it's really not as sexy as it looks. It's you're going to be suddenly doing 3 times the number of studies they promised you would have. You're going to be overwhelmed, and there's no family. And there's no Taco Thursday, and there's no Woody Donuts. I really want to be more involved in this group, and this is my first meeting here that I've said anything, and I'd like to be back. So I appreciate everyone. I had some questions, just real quick. Is there any way that anyone would feel comfortable sharing information about like workloads, salary, benefits, PTO? I had a 3-month, 90-day probationary review for a research assistant who had no prior experience, brought her in, and she said, I really think you don't provide enough perks for us. She's, in her early 20s, and she said, I've talked to friends that get 4 weeks of vacation plus 2 weeks of educational leave plus such and such. And so it sort of amounted to her thinking that 8 weeks of vacation is normal. And I had to do everything I could to not do what Joe just did. And
Wow.
just, sort of say, well, look, this is a good idea. Let's talk about it, but let's explore, what field were they in? Well, they're in tech and they had advanced degrees and such. And, but it would be very helpful, I think, for me, because I do think, things are changing. We have to adapt to increasing demands. We want to keep our good staff here. It may mean that we have to pay a little bit more, provide more time off, or other perks. And I'm really interested in sort of seeing what everybody is doing with regard to that, and just to make sure that I stay competitive, with other, any other job out there.
Don, you can contact me anytime. And I think one of the issues with all that stuff, but I think we did something with our staff, which was interesting with our coordinators. We're having a problem finding them. And then we came to the idea of talking to our coordinators, and we had just some really, really good coordinators. And we were saying, we have a question for you. Would you rather be paid more, but be consciously aware that demand for what your performance is going to be as far as numbers would be higher? Or would you rather be paid where you are and us bring in another coordinator? It's just an example. And we left that, and if everybody could agree, then we would go that way. And if they could, and all of them chose to be paid more, because the reality is, if every coordinator I've ever asked, you say, how is your time divided? It's always a third is doing absolute grunt work. It's binders, it's this, it's copying, whatever. So the ability to pay them more, and we know they're good, and then having another assistant coordinator who could do the grunt work for each of them has really, really worked out very well. Plus you have an assistant coordinator who may, in a year or whatever, turn out to be a coordinator. But it was interesting how we put it in their hands. We were not saying, we want you to do this, we want you to do that. We were saying, what do you think would be best for you? And what do you think would be best for the site? The difference, Don, with the HR and all that stuff is Texas and California and New Jersey and Florida, some of the laws are significantly different. California, I think it's California, may not be feds, but the minimum wage is going up for salaried employees to $15 an hour, which most people are not aware of. They have a minimum wage for salaried employees. I mean, hourly is 15. They actually have a minimum wage for hourly employees starting at the same time of $30 an hour. And so that's a whole nother interesting aspect of what we're doing and how we're doing it and so forth. But yeah, in fact,
you get people that look on Glassdoor or something like that, and then they come in and they're like, I'm really surprised. This is what you're offering me. I have 6 months of history as a research assistant in a basic science lab. And I just thought that the beginning salary for a research coordinator is $75,000 a year. And you have to sort of address, well, that's not quite it. But I don't want to be, I'm losing my hair. You still have a lot of hair for your age, Woody. I don't want to be the old man in the room that's still stuck in my old ways and being, stingy. We've worked really hard through the pandemic, never took a break, had a few scares with some people off. We've actually almost doubled in size over the pandemic, moved in September to a larger space. It took me forever to find some good people, even had to recruit from out of state. And we've done really well building up our staff. But now what we're having trouble with is we're getting hit with the recruitment issue, that suddenly we're having no shows. And I'd hate to lose staff, and I'd, hate to have to move backwards because of finances. So
Yep.
all of the stuff that we're talking about is super relevant, and I appreciate it.
Hey, Erica, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, gosh. Hold on.
Carol, if you mute either the phone or the computer. No.
Can you
Try
hear me
that.
now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move this thing. So I know that we're almost out of time. What a great, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. But don't crawl
What?
under your desk again.
I'm hiding my phone. I don't know why it's doing that. I couldn't get on Zoom. It took me forever. I knew this would be such a great topic. It's so important for us to feel validated. I think all of us are experiencing the same things. This is a conversation that needs to continue. I really think not just a work group. We've got to get a work group to have some solutions as a team together. I think when we're in silos, obviously we feel like we're a broken record to sponsors sometimes, or the CROs. But when we come together as a group and say, look, this is a culmination of all of our problems that are all the same, and then create some real standard solutions that we can provide the CROs and sponsors, I think would be impactful for all of us. It's easy to say we just need more money, but what does that look like? And do we put in some form of non-competes where we don't have to worry about every monitor that comes in that's trying to recruit our coordinators, or the rating systems know the data that our raters are providing, and then now they're going after our raters. We have no raters at the site. How do we put some systems in place that there's some kind of accountability to that we're working as a team, and how do we keep them from doing that? Because if there's no sites, there is no CRO or sponsor data being collected, right? If we're all,
Right.
There's just a PI and coordinator that owns the site. We're going back to what we did when we first started this stuff. Then the patient recruitment's not, even more of an issue. Hopefully, Erica, can you put out a work group? I hope that each of you guys will get in this work group. I know I will do it. And sites can get together.
I like
I
that.
like that
And
idea.
I just noticed about asking if we provide 100% of the health insurance costs to the employee themselves. And it's usually an HMO, and they can select where the middle level they can go up or whatever. And then if they want family, they can do. But I thought I'm sorry.
Yeah, it would be great to start that work group at CNS.
Yeah, I was typing that out as you said it. I think that would be a really great idea.
Mhm. So Erica
Me
can
too.
help us organize that. Just please look at your emails and respond. And I have a pretty big suite that we could, all meet at, so it doesn't cost any more than, and we could even maybe set up a virtual for those that aren't going, that you could join in on that meeting.
be
Because I
great.
think that would be important as
That
well.
would be great.
I sent this in the chat, but just to throw it out there, is there a between Zoom meeting forum or place for exchanging information and having further conversation that the STARR Coalition has?
As part of work groups, so once we start this work group up, as part of the work group, we generally set up a Google Drive folder, and that's where we can and then work through email. We have the STARR platform, but it doesn't seem like people are inclined to get on there. So it just seems like it's easier just to use the Google platform or the Google Drive and via email with the work groups. But yeah, we absolutely will set up this work group. And I love the idea of meeting together at the CNS Summit.
And Dawn, it really, we can talk about it more at CNS Summit, how we could do that, because like some of the work groups have had to been, they were driven by phone conversations, like we would set up a meeting every 2 weeks, and then the group would get together, and then there'd be email in between as there would be assignments for everybody. And that's how stuff would get pushed along. So each work group has been different, I think, through the years. And it just depends on who's involved and how they want it to be set up. So we can set this work group up however you guys want to do it and how we think it's best. I think it's a hot topic. It needs to be addressed. So the quicker we can get on it and push through, the better off we all are.
Could I ask one thing in the meantime? If anybody, one of the issues I brought up earlier about if people are working with any kind of central recruitment group or social media group, whatever, if they could send some information to Erica, just like for schizophrenia, we've had great luck with ABC and they've been terrible. Just that kind of, doesn't have to be complicated, just short information. Here's a group that was very helpful for us for depression or this or that. If they could send that to you, Erica, if that's okay with you, then we could, if people are interested, people could check with you and say, what did you find out? Because there's just so many out there, and having somebody that's had a good experience has been very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to put that together. And we could even put something on our website and just have a private area on the website so that if everybody wanted to just access some information, it would be available, like openly available. But yeah, so please send me that information as you get it, and then I can share that with the group.
Right.
Thanks, Woody. That's a great idea.
Oh, and the other thing we should mention, Erica, we have cards have been made up. Erica's made up these cards. So people that are going to CNS Summit will have these STARR Coalition cards that you can just hand out to people. You're giving them your business card, you give them this card, and it speaks to what we're doing and what we're trying to do. And I think it's just a great person-to-person way to get that information out to people very simply and in a face-to-face way.
Thanks, Woody. Yeah, I actually will send Woody, if you're going to the CNS Summit, if you could shoot me an email and let me know, that would be great. I'm going to send Woody and actually Leslie Franceschi, who will be there. I'm going to send them a supply so that they'll be able to share with everyone these cards.
We'll be handing them out at the Baccarat table from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m.
And you'll have to buy Woody a cocktail. No, actually, a cup of tea, I guess, Woody, huh?
Cup of tea would be good.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And as soon as I get the approval and get this thing edited, I will put it up and send you an email and let you know it's available. So thanks very much for joining the call, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much for setting it up, Erica.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.